Have you ever wondered why the rich get richer and others don't? Could it be that a small percentage of the population seek out others to find, study, and execute on legal loopholes that exist within our financial life and make it easier for them to prosper? The answer is a resounding yes. This is the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. John has spent a lifetime researching and mastering the financial loopholes that he believes should be available to everyone. Join us as we explore different strategies that help you get farther faster towards building and enjoying a prosperous retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of the Wealthy with John Mintz. John, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning to you too, Eric. I'm doing great. Doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. I'm waiting for this podcast. This is about a Roth on steroids, which is still a great title to me. And so we're going to dive right into this. Where are we starting today, John?
Well, anytime I get to talking about tax-free anything, tax-free growth, tax-free spending, accumulation, whatever, I get excited. And so there's going to be a lot of excitement in this today. Okay, let's talk about an age-old secret that I feel that more folks need to know about. And when I say that it's an age-old secret, it's when I introduce this concept and this structure to professionals like doctors and dentists and chiropractors. They always seem so surprised that they didn't know about it prior to meeting me, to the point that they say, well, could you come speak at our next dentist convention or our next chiropractic convention? And more people need to know about that. It's always, it shouldn't surprise me, but it still does that more people, especially individuals that are paying a lot of taxes, don't know about this, considering how long it's been around. So we'll start, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but I'm going to ask the question again. What do the following people have in common? Walt Disney, Ray Kroc, who was the founder of McDonald's, J.C. Penney, and Doris Christopher, Pampered Chef.
Well, I kind of know the answer to this. So audience, I'm hoping you're thinking right now, but I'm assuming they're all using the same strategy.
Correct. So, we said, and also on a previous episode, one of the secrets of the wealthy is they don't follow the masses, right? And so all of the folks above had one thing in common, and this is a cool little historical fact. They all used cash value life insurance to either start or save their companies. So I want to say that again because I really want it to sink in that every one of them used cash value life insurance to either start or save their companies. So meaning that I think the story goes with Walt Disney is that, he wanted to start Disney World, and of course, going down to the banks, so they all thought he was nuts. You want to start a fantasy land? And so they all thought it was a fantasy, but he turned that fantasy into reality. Why? Because he had this vehicle stored up in a way such that he could use it for that purpose. So anyway, I just think that's a really neat way to start this, to say that not only are they successful individuals, but these are individuals that otherwise may not have been able to start or save their companies had it not been for this structure. And there's very few places anymore you can accumulate tax-free, right? We've talked about Roth IRAs. Now we're talking about what we call Roth on steroids, which is cash value life insurance. But again, this is not like your grandfather or grandmother's life insurance we're talking about here. We'll explain that as we go. So if you cannot get enough money into a Roth, and a lot of folks that make too much money or don't make any money if they're retired, can't get money into Roth, this might be a very good alternative. So I've said it before, one of, if not my favorite places to store money long-term is cash value life insurance. I've been saying that for a long, long time, and certainly it's growing in its popularity now. And I promise you, those four people I mentioned above, they agree with that statement. But let's get into just a quick life insurance lesson so so folks know, the different types of life insurance, how they're different, and how this is really different than maybe what they've ever heard of or been taught before. All right?
All right, John, before we get into that, let me ask you a question. I know that IRAs, Roth IRAs, rules have changed, right, in the last few years with the different tax changes that have come down. With the Roth IRA, does the government have more control than we think? Meaning, can they change the rules on us when it comes to Roth IRAs and how they function?
Well, break that question down a little bit more. So what do you mean when you say, can they change the rules? That's a pretty wide open question. Can you break it down, be a little bit more specific?
Well, so what concerns me is that I think that a lot of people think that a Roth IRA is secure, and you get, you put in money post-tax, it grows, you're not taxed on it when you take it out, so on and so forth. But I feel like they have changed the rules a lot of ways. Like the stretch IRA is gone, right? That used to be something that families used to help preserve wealth for generations, and to the next generation, Congress changed the rules. Is it possible that they could change rules on how a Roth works?
Of course it is. Of course it's possible. In fact, they're already changing the rules. You mentioned the one with the stretch IRA being eliminated. They're in the current Build Back Better bill that they are continuing to discuss, I think they might vote on it this month, is the fact that in certain individuals, whether they have too much money or make too much money, will no longer be able to contribute to a Roth. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see, a Roth IRA go away for everyone at some point. They're going to have to start finding ways to at least eliminating ways for individuals that have accumulated wealth tax-free to continue to expand that. And so, yes, can they do that, or maybe will they do that? Sure, absolutely. Which is why it's so important. It's a good point you bring up, because it really tells you why it's so important not to have all your eggs in one basket, as they say,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So that's a real good point. If everybody says, well, I'm just going to do Roth IRAs, I'm just going to do Roth conversions, and, they do that for 10, 15 years, and they're going well, and then they develop some sort of health issue along the way, and then Roth IRAs get eliminated. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not going to hurt them on the Roth, more likely. It's not going to hurt them on the Roths they have intact. But if their plan was to keep going on Roth, and now they cannot get cash value life insurance because of their health issues, then it causes a problem with, their plan. So if you have both of those in place as you go, and you lose one or the other for some reason, it's not going to completely derail your plan, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really good point you make, and one that I actually get into these types of conversations because I have folks that ask that question that you just asked quite frequently, but I always try to break it down a little bit because sometimes they mean something different than what they ask. But yeah, I think everything that has any sort of tax advantage to it, is subject to being looked at. It's subject to being changed. I get the question about, this structure as well that we're getting into, this cash value life insurance structure. Hey, John, well, what's the chances that they could change the rules on this? And the answer is the same, that it's always going to be up for discussion. However, more than likely, if we're already in it and we've already have it in place, it's going to be grandfathered in, and they won't take that away from us. They'll just keep us from doing more. So, okay, good point. So just a really quick lesson, if that's the right way to say that, with the two types of insurance. So we have term insurance and we have permanent insurance. Now, there's a number of different products that fall within those, but generally speaking, that's the two major types of insurance. So term insurance it's like renting. So if you rent a home, you pay monthly, and if you don't get any intrinsic value over time, if you're in that home for 1 year or 4 years or 6 years and you leave, it's not your home. You have nothing of value to take with you. So also with term, It's a lower cost initially, like renting a home. So meaning that, if I take out a term insurance policy when I get married at age 25, it's really, really cheap because the actuaries know that the chances of me dying during the next 20 years, if that's a 20-year term, is really low. And so, but then that 20 years is up. Now I'm 45. And so I get another 20-year term. And that insurance is a little bit more, but it's still affordable, assuming my health's still in place. But then the next time around is age 65. Well, what happens between 45 and 65? Either A, my health deteriorates to the point where I can't qualify now, or B, the rates have gone up so significantly because of my age that I can't afford it even if I could qualify. And so now I don't have any. And I always ask the point, when do you most need life insurance? It's, well, when you die, right? So, I mean, this sounds kind of simple, but that's really when it's going to be of value to your estate. So anyway, it goes up over time like rent. There's no value like rent. And at some point it will end. So unless you die during the actual term or time, it has no value. So permanent, on the other hand, however, permanent insurance is the opposite. So permanent insurance is like owning a home. All right? So if I own a home and I invest in that over time, it's going to appreciate, and that appreciation is mine to keep. So with permanent insurance, and there's different types of permanent insurance. We're just going to be talking about one type. But with permanent insurance, then that has the opportunity to grow and improve over time. For example, we have X amount that we put into the contract on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis. And the amount that it's going to grow over time, the cash value inside of that structure is going to grow over time, will increase and accelerate. The way I try to explain it to people is like this. If you get in an airplane and that airplane takes off and it's full of fuel, then halfway to your destination, it's burned off a lot of fuel, meaning the plane is significantly lighter. So the plane is going to fly more efficiently on the second half of the trek than it is on the first half of the trek. Well, that's the way cash value permanent life insurance works. That over time, even though we're doing the same thing or contributing the same amount, it's going to get more efficient in its growth. So unlike a Roth or unlike a traditional investment where, a 4% or a 5% growth is a 4% or 5% growth, it is compounding on that interest, which improves it over time. So it's a similar but different, and we'll explain that as we go. But that's exactly how we set this up to say permanent insurance is different than term insurance. It's different in that it's permanent for starters, but it will never end. So 5 years in, 15 years in, 20 years in, I get heart disease, I get diabetes, I get cancer. They can't take that away from me. It's mine to keep for as long as I'm, here.
Well, that sounds good, right? I mean, that's one thing that I know that people get concerned about is losing the policy or having it canceled. So the word permanent, to me, that obviously is a very powerful statement. What else do we want to cover today? I know that we're getting a little shorter on time. I know that you're really going to dive into the full value and how this actually works, the nuts and bolts of it on the next podcast. But anything else for today's?
On to the good stuff next time, which is exactly how we get the money into these contracts, how it grows, and more importantly, how we can use it. But I want to give people a little bit of a taste for next time. When we keep hearing the Roth on steroids, right? Some people refer to it as a super Roth internally because in essence, what this thing does is the same thing as a Roth, but better in some ways. So you said earlier on the show, Eric, you said, all right, so a Roth, we put the money in, it grows tax-free, and we can pull it out tax-free. We put it in after tax. It grows tax-free, and we can pull it out tax-free. The exact same thing happens here. But people are still thinking, yeah, but this is life insurance. So, well, it is. So technically, it is a life insurance contract. But, oh, it's so much more. So, for example, if I was to show you, and I can't do that today, but if I were to show you an illustration of how the actual cash usable value. So usable meaning just like you can pull money out of your Roth account, you can pull money out of this and use it the same way, tax-free. So that the way that cash value, that usable value will grow over time, that is the very unique piece to this. And it's how you structure it, and you've got to know what you're doing when you structure it. You can't just go down to your local State Farm agent, property and casualty agent, and say, hey, will you put this together for me? Because I guarantee you he probably doesn't know what it is and never seen it. So you really have to know what you're doing when you structure this, but the way this thing grows over time and it's usable is in ways that is not only equal to but superior to a Roth. And we'll get into that next time, and most importantly, we're going to get into, different types of ways to use this and how it will work really well for individuals, especially business owners. And we'll talk about that next time.
John, again, thank you so much for your education today and in the future. I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in and listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it really easy to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Secrets of the Wealthy, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of John Mintz. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.